The National Museum of Funeral History presents The Final Curtain Never Closes. I'm your host, Genevieve Vasquez, the president and CEO of the museum. Today I have a very unique guest with me. Gabriel Najera is joining me this morning here at the museum, and we are going to talk about the death-defying journey beyond his prognosis. It's obviously going to be a journey that I'm going to learn so much about. I've already began learning when we were talking prior to the show, and I have to say, this is a remarkable person who has a personality bigger than, I want to say, probably Texas. It has to be. But I'm so honored to have him with us today. Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you. Always my pleasure to be able to come and step into these podcasts and talk to people who want to learn something. And I hope that someone will learn something after today. Yeah.
So I'm seeing you in person, and for our listeners who can't see you, the whole reasoning for this talk today is because of the challenges that you were born with, or do we even call those challenges? Do you call them challenges?
Well, no, I don't call them challenges. I just call them a different lifestyle. And I don't mean a different lifestyle in trying to figure out what sex I am, but it's a different lifestyle because I don't have any arms. I was born without arms, and my legs didn't quite develop completely. I do have my legs. I do walk, but my feet are turned upside down. But that hasn't stopped me from not getting around and doing everything that everyday people do in their lives.
And so how long are your legs? Put it in perspective.
I have no idea how long they are.
How tall are you?
I'm about 4 or 5 maybe.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
And you would say it's your torso and...
Oh, my torso is about 80% of that.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. So that's what I was trying to get our listeners to visualize, that your height is majority of your torso, therefore
Correct.
Your legs are not as long.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, some people tell me that my torso is about the height of someone that should be 6 feet tall. And I'm like, well, okay, but I'm not. I'm only 4.
Yeah, and I think I actually got that impression when I first met you, because this is my first time meeting you. And I was very impressed with your stature, even though it's on the short side, if I may say.
But like I said, life goes on.
Yes, it does. and to that, we say life goes on. However, when you were first born, I think the whole concept of you not having life and being faced with death was what you were met with. Is that correct?
Yes, I came out of my mother's womb, and just because the doctors didn't see the whole package, it's like, okay, there's something missing here. They first thought that I was dead, and that was what they said. Oh, my God, he's dead. But then they realized I wasn't dead because I turned around and said, hey, no, wait a minute, I'm here, Well, okay, not quite in those words, but they realized I wasn't dead. So
you communicated through your crying, correct?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
I said that I communicated with the wah, 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 which is, the universal language that we all speak when we're born.
Of course, yes. Very well said. Yes, that is a very universal language. It lets people know that you have life to you, you are breathing, and you are to, in fact, not dead. Correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always tell people, it's funny how if you put 2 babies together, and they can be from totally different countries, different languages, but you put 2 babies together, and they seem to talk to each other and understand each other.
Very true. And speaking of, you are from another country. Where were you born?
I was originally born in Mexico City. So, yes, I'm from another country, not another planet, just another country. And I lived there for about the first 5 years of my life until I was then brought here to the U.S. To be fitted with some prosthetics.
By the wonderful organization of Shriners.
Yes, the Shriners Hospitals, which helps many, many kids throughout the world. They brought me here to try to see if I could work with prosthetics. They made me some artificial arms and some artificial legs. Artificial arms so that I could try to, grab things and move things with the arms. And then the legs were to help me try to walk and grow along with my peers. So each year they would add a couple of inches to my height so that I would try to keep up with the height of all the rest of the kids. But that became also useless as I was growing older because my feet are my hands. Okay, and by my feet being my hands, I do everything with my feet. So these artificial legs were kind of like tubes that my feet and my legs would slide into, and they would then tie them down, and then I'd be like walking on stilts.
Wow, that's a challenge.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
I had to learn lots of things about life and falling down.
I bet. So you fell a lot in your life, right?
Literally and not literally. I did. I took a lot of landings.
Yeah.
But they became, obsolete, or not obsolete. They became useless because my feet were then tied down. So if I was to put these artificial legs on, the only thing I could do was walk. And walk and walk and walk, and that's kind of useless, because my hands were tied down. I couldn't use my hands.
Because you didn't have any, or because the prosthetics weren't working in conjunction with your legs?
Because my feet were my hands. So like I said, my feet would slide into these tubes and then tied down. So... you're basically tying my hands down. Wow. Yeah, I look good, as tall as the rest of the kids. And, I wore, a decent pair of shoes, but that didn't help me any because I was useless.
Wow. Those are some very interesting challenges that I'm sure the people that although they were trying to do good for you and creating a prosthetic, they didn't realize they were also creating a hindrance or making you even more unable to do things for yourself.
And then, yes and no. I mean, they obviously calculate everything. I remember being at the Shriners Hospital. I was 5 years old, and, the doctors would always make their rounds in the mornings and talk about each of the kids as they would walk by. And every time they would walk by my bed, always, the rounds were made for the student doctors more than the real doctors. It was always led by a real doctor, and then the rest of them were students. And I recall on many occasions during those tours that one of the students would always come up with the bright idea and throw it out there of saying, well, instead of making them prosthetics, like, got custom-made prosthetic, why don't we just make him prosthetic like we do for all the veterans? Why don't we just cut his legs off at the knee and make, a regular prosthetic like the veterans, and that way, it would be much easier to make. And I always remember it was always the chief of staff doctor that was there at that time that always had to, stand up and say, no, we are not cutting off his legs because he uses his feet.
Yeah, it'd be like cutting off your hands all over again.
Right.
Right? I mean...
But it was always like, no, we're not cutting off his legs. We are, he's keeping his feet, and we're going to do everything possible to custom fit the prosthetics with his feet.
Yeah.
So, they always realized that, the importance of my feet. But I think they still went ahead with the process of making the prosthetics, even though they knew they were going to be tying my hands down. They went ahead through because they figured that they would at least solve a temporary problem, meaning that because my feet were turned upside down, there's no way that I could put my feet in regular shoes. So therefore, it was impossible for me to walk out on the street and go, anywhere walking because I walked barefoot. I learned to walk, on my feet, even though they're upside down. I learned to walk with barefooted, but of course, out on the street, that would be a no-no. So therefore, they figured they would solve that temporary problem so that I could at least walk outside on the street with the prosthetics. And that's why they went on with the project of making me prosthetics. But like I said, it wasn't until I became, and I were talking earlier, until I became an adolescent at the age of 16 that I said, no, that's it. I've had enough of these prosthetics. They're not really working out like they should. I said, God made me this way, so why don't we just leave it,
leave well enough alone,
leave well
right?
enough of that one alone. I think God knows a little better than we do, what's going on here. So let's just, do without the prosthetics. And sure enough, I left the prosthetics, didn't ever use them again. And, I always says, God's perfect plan, that right at that same time, I'm living in college, in the college dorms, and all of a sudden, I get a roommate that is a surfer. Okay, he's a surfer. He's a beach bum, and he wears these sandals. Okay, that at the time were very popular. I'm talking back in the 80s. And these sandals became real popular in the 70s and 80s among beachgoers and especially surfers because they were made for surfing. But they're just regular sandals. And one day when he went off to class and wore his tennis shoes and left the sandals behind, I all of a sudden looked at the sandals and started visualizing how I could put my feet into those sandals because of the way the straps were made. These were sandals made with foam and rubber soles and surgical tubing for what would wrap around the feet to hold your feet in place.
Because they needed to stay on when you went into the water, correct? Is that
right.
what they were designed to stay on your feet when you fell off your board?
They were designed by a former beach bum, surfer, for surfing. And so I didn't need, to go that deep into the deal about surfing, but I could put my feet into them, hold the straps with my toes, and walk. So I took his sandals, I put them on. I walked outside on the street, walked on the gravel. I was like, yes, this is it.
Wow.
And ever since then, I've been able to walk out, and I still wear them, even though the company's gone out of business. But
I hope you bought a bunch of pairs before they went out of business.
Well, I bought some pairs, and then I found out, I researched the manufacturers of all the materials, so I bought me lots of materials, and now I hand make them. Well, actually, I cut a lot of the pieces myself, but I'm good friends with the designer, the inventor of the sandals. He was actually from here, from Houston.
Wow.
And he still lives here in Houston. He's older now, but when I first told him my story about discovering his sandals and being able to walk again, he was like, Gabriel, you will never, ever pay for another pair of sandals in your life. Because I will make them for you as long as I live.
That's a wonderful, wonderful
story. So I now have sandals for the rest of my life. I hope so anyway.
So do you have different colors, different styles for different outfits?
No, it's the same.
It's the same.
The material comes in gray and black sole bottom and tubing, whatever tubing he's got laying around. He used to make them in different colors and different styles and stuff like that. But since, like I say, he went out of business, he didn't go out of it. He sold the company to someone else and someone else and someone else. But he still helps me custom make my sandals for me.
That's an amazing story.
So that's my story about the prosthetics and the sandals that I still wear today.
So you're keeping those sandals alive, aren't you?
I am, yeah, definitely. and if anybody from back in the 70s and 80s, from the area here, when they see me, they're like, yeah, I remember those sandals. I'm not mentioning the brand, but anyway.
Yeah, but still, it's interesting that you found something.
It was at the same time that I gave up the prosthetics.
Yeah,
because like I said, it's all, what I call God's perfect plan, where everything just moves on and moves on,
And had you not had that surfer roommate, you would have never found those shoes.
Exactly.
Yeah, amazing. And then, of course, have you always lived in Houston your entire life?
Most of my life, yes. I was actually, when I came here to Houston to the Shriners Hospital, they then hooked me up with a school that used to be in Port Arthur, which is, 90 miles from here. It was a school for handicapped kids. And I lived in that school 9 months out of the year. And then I would go back to Mexico for the summer vacation and Christmas vacations. But I lived at the school in Port Arthur where they had dormitories. And I was practically raised, I guess you could say, from the time I was 6 till I was 16. At 16, I graduated from high school, from a regular public high school, which back then used to be called Thomas Jefferson High School in Port Arthur. And then I moved to Beaumont, where I went to Lamar University in Beaumont.
Wow.
And studied computer science engineering. And then when I finished there, I moved here to Houston to look for a job and stayed here in Houston.
And so what do you do for a job?
Well, I used to have my own business. I ran my own computer business. When I moved here to Houston to look for a job, nobody would give me a job because they didn't think I was able to do it. Of course, they never said, we're not hiring you because you don't have arms. That would be discrimination. And since we live in the land of, lawsuits, they couldn't discriminate. So anyway, they wouldn't hire me. So I decided, well, if nobody's going to hire me, I just start my own business. And I did. I started my own computer company where I started out as a programmer, writing programs for companies. And then after that, I started also selling and building my own computer systems. And then I started exporting them. So then I built an exporting company, an import-export company. And so I was now running two businesses. And then after that, I started a third company that would set up networks. We used to run all the wires, in companies and build, what we call internet nowadays. Back then, it was just called networks. And then after the internet was born, the internet boom came up, and all of a sudden all my customers that I would sell computers to and write software for, they would come up to me and they're like, Gabriel, do you know anything about this thing called the internet and this thing called email and something about www something? And I'm like, yeah, I know a little bit about that. And it's like, well, could you, come and teach us a little bit about that, because the government said they won't do business with us anymore if we don't do, this email thing. So I set up another company that was strictly for internet. It's called Houston Internet Consulting, where I would go and do training at companies on how to use the internet, email, and websites. And then they would ask me if I would, make websites for their company, their businesses. And so, we started designing websites and doing the e-commerce and all the stuff that has to do with internet. And so I was running, 4 companies then at the time. And if that wasn't enough, then one day I was at a car wash, took my car to get it cleaned. And
wait, I'm sorry. You said you took your car to get it cleaned.
Right.
Like you drove your car.
Yes, I drive my own car.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said wow in the last 5 minutes silently. And for you listeners over here, I just, my mouth has been jaw dropped for the last, 5 minutes, other than closing it to say wow. But okay, back to washing your car.
If you live here in Houston, or actually if you live anywhere in Texas, you can't live without a car. So
that's true. That's very true.
One of the things I had to do was buy a car and fix it for me to drive and start driving. And I've been driving ever since I was 19 years old. And I've basically driven all over this country, and I've driven down to Mexico and down to Guatemala and El Salvador and Honduras.
No challenge is too great for you, is what I'm hearing here. I'm truly,
because I don't really see things as challenges. I just see things as, you got
opportunities, right?
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. So I apologize. I interrupted you. You were talking about you took your car to the car wash.
Took my car to the car wash. And so as I was, when they gave me my car back, all nice and shiny, I got in my car and I was about to close the door when all of a sudden this gentleman walks up to my car and grabs the door, and wouldn't let me close it. And I turned around and looked at him and I said, excuse me, can I help you? And he's like, you're not really going to drive this car, are you? And I was like, yes, I am. He says, wow, that's not possible. You don't have any arms. How are you going to hold the steering wheel and your legs are so short and you can't reach the pedals? How are you going to do this? This must be illegal. And I was like, no, it's legal. He said, do you have a driver's license? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, can I see it? So I pulled out my wallet and took out my driver's license and handed it to him. And he's like, wow, this is amazing. This must be a miracle. God's speaking to me. He says, I'm a pastor at a church. He said, you've got to come to my church. You've got to come and speak to my people and tell them about you and who you are and what you do, because this is just totally amazing. You're going to drive. He said, I'm 42 years old. He said, I'm scared to death of driving. He said, I don't drive. I have a chauffeur. He said, and you driving, he said, this has just got to be, God speaking to me, and you've got to come speak at my church. I said, okay, yeah, sure, I'll go to your church. He said, you ever done that before? I said, no, never done that before. He said, don't worry, you just stand there with me on the altar and we just, talk about your life, Sure, okay, why not? So I went to his church, and by the way, it was 3 services that he asked me to do. One at 7 o'clock in the morning, which had about 80 people. Second service was about 9 o'clock in the morning, and that was about maybe 800 people. And then the third service at 11 o'clock, it was almost about 2,000 people. And I don't know if you know, but the number one fear in people is speaking in public.
Of course.
That's
yeah.
the number one fear. The second fear is death.
That is true. Very true.
So more people are afraid of speaking in public than they are dying. You know, and I'm like, well, I conquered the first one. I get the second one, it should be no problem. You know?
Oh, you've been conquering the second one since the moment you were born.
Yeah, well.
So if you think about it, that was probably your first fear, and you didn't even realize that, well, it actually wasn't maybe your fear. It was those around you. It was their fear for you.
I didn't have that was my fear. I was just here, you know.
Wow.
And so he invited me to church, and I did all 3 services, and afterwards, all the people started coming up to me and thanking me for, you know, sharing my testimony. And then they started inviting me to go to their companies to speak at their businesses, you know, to motivate their employees. And then they started inviting me to go to different schools, you know, to talk to their kids at their schools. And then they started inviting me to go to other churches. And then I started going to other cities and then other states and other countries, to where that's what I do now is
You're a motivational
speaker. And I travel all over the world giving my talk to people saying, if I can, you can. Exactly. That's the title of my speech and my slogan that I clearly, you know, tell people, hey, you know, if I've been able to do everything that I've done in my 58 years, why can't you?
Exactly.
You know, what's stopping you?
They're probably stopping themselves.
Well, it's their mindset is what it is.
Exactly.
The mind is what controls everything.
And for you, I mean, it's obviously true because your mind is what truly drives you to do all the things that you do. Because without your mind, you wouldn't have been able to figure all this out, right?
Exactly. The mind is what controls everybody.
Mm-hmm. And it's a very powerful thing.
It's just your mindset, you know, how you're programmed and how you live your life and who you hang around with and what you feed your mind. You know, I always tell people, everybody's worried about, you know, what they feed their bodies because they don't want to, you know, look too fat, too skinny, too tall, too short, you know, but they don't worry about what they feed their mind every day. But what you feed your mind is who you are.
Very true. That's very true. And so actually there's probably a lot of people, you know, we have that term called brain dead, right? And it's a literal term medically that you're brain dead, that your brain stem no longer has function and can no longer provide your body the life that it needs by sustaining your required organ function, right?
You know, but you know, I read an article just recently, real interesting. I don't know if you mind if I go into that real quickly.
Not at all.
Brain dead. I read an article about how there was this hospital, and this doctor ordered the intern nurse or whatever she was to go in and inject. I forgot what the medication is called, but they had this person there that was brain dead, and they were going to take out one of his organs. And the doctor ordered the nurse to inject the man that was laying there with this medication so he would not feel any pain. And the nurse came back and said, wait a minute, why are we going to inject this guy with medication to feel no pain if he's brain dead? And the doctor said, because it's still a requirement. So, are people really brain dead or not?
Yeah, and what really defines brain dead beyond the clinical?
What defines brain dead? Because there's been a lot of cases of people that have come back from being so-called brain dead and lived a regular life afterwards.
Exactly. And it's interesting because I was also thinking the reason why I brought up brain dead is because when you were talking about how you have to feed your mind and your mind is everything, that I sit there and for those people that are looking to you for inspiration, maybe perhaps they're a little brain dead. They're living, they're alive, they're breathing, they're walking around, they're eating. But do you think maybe part of their brain is a little dead and you're trying to bring it back to life with your motivational speaking?
I don't think they're brain dead. I think they're ignorant.
Oh, Okay, you took it to another level.
I think
Wow.
ignorance is a big part. I mean,
Okay.
it's what plays here, or what you're trying to describe is ignorance, and ignorance can be fixed. I always tell people we can fix ignorance. We can't fix stupidity, but we can fix ignorance.
That's
And-
very well said.
And ignorance we can fix by feeding information and making something with that information.
So then, with that information of being brain dead, do you think that brain dead then is a true thing?
Well, after reading that article about how even in medicine they still are going to inject that person with a painkiller or not a painkiller, but something to numb so they won't feel pain. Then I'm still wondering, even scientifically, do they still recognize brain dead or not? As in not feeling.
Yeah.
But I think that could be a controversial.
Very, very
subject.
controversial. They say, I mean, even when we're getting ready to die, they say the last sense to go is your hearing. That people can still hear you up to the moment of their death, up to their last breath. And I work with dying people all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I always encourage families to talk to their loved one, let them know that they're here and they're present, because even though they can't respond, they're still present to some degree.
Well, I think they're even present even afterwards. So, but
Of course, yes, for those of us that do believe in the afterlife, that there is still presence and the soul is transitioning into a different life form or a different form of existence.
Right. Well, I think we're all energy, and science has proven
Yes.
we're all energy, and we're just here vibrating different frequencies. So once we leave the body, I think the energy moves on and is still around. I think right now this room is full of, energies that are listening.
We're playing
to,
off of each other's energies.
We're playing- exactly.
We're absorbing it. We're playing a tennis match with our energies. We're embracing our energies within this. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think sometimes when you get to know a person for the first time, there's a sense of the energies also meeting and trying to feel each other out to see if the energies match.
Right. Well, like I said, we're all vibrating, and we vibrate at different frequencies. And, I get people to come up to me. I do, personal coaching. And so some people will come to talk to me about, oh, I can't find my soulmate, oh, I can't find my partner, oh, I can't get a girl, or I can't get a boyfriend, And I'm like, well, it's because you're not vibrating in the same frequency as they are, and they just kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, you got to learn how to, manage your vibrations, and what frequency you're vibrating at. And so they're like, well, I don't understand what you're talking about. I said, well, don't worry. When you find a person that is vibrating in the same frequency as you are, then you'll realize what I'm talking about.
Exactly. So we're talking about frequencies, talking about the death, talking about the frequencies and energies that are present after death. What do you think those are, and have you had any experiences with those?
I'm going to repeat myself. They're here right now.
Oh, I thought you were talking about us.
No, I wasn't talking about us. I'm talking about all the energies that are in this room right now.
Wow.
And they're watching us and they're listening to us. And they're participating.
Okay, so now you have just taken me in a whole different direction. I'm dumbfounded once again by you.
Well, they're energies, and we're just not vibrating, or your mind right now is not syncing with their vibrations, with their frequencies. But if you can sync into their frequencies, then that's when you can feel them, you can tell their presence. I just quickly, 2 nights ago, I was sitting at my dining room table, and all of a sudden, I'm by myself. There's no one in the house, and all of a sudden, I hear this real loud, bang or pop. I thought, okay, who's shooting? Who's shooting the guns outside?
This is Houston, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever have this problem, in my neighborhood, but, hey, it's always the first time, right? And so I'm sitting there and I hear this loud pop and I look around and I don't see anything, nothing's out of the unusual, but I kind of could feel that the sound came from, my pantry. So I go to the pantry, and there in the pantry on the floor is, a bottle of some kind of salad dressing, and a couple of pieces of some peaches.
Peaches.
Right.
Fruit
from a can of peaches.
Oh, okay. Wait, so the can busted open?
The can busted. It exploded.
Wow.
And it didn't explode the can itself, but the top
Popped off.
popped out.
And this is a sealed can that normally you need to open with a can opener.
Yes, it was a sealed can.
Wow, that was quite a fall.
And there was 2 cans of the same product, one right next to each other that I probably bought at the same time, and they've been in the pantry for the same amount of time. And my house wasn't hot, like the air conditioner's running, so it's a nice and cool place. But all of a sudden, this can, the top pops open. And it knocks over the salad dressing, and some of the peaches were spilled on the floor. So I had to then, pick up the peaches and the bottle of salad dressing and clean up the little mess. And so then all of a sudden then walk away. And when I come back, the rest of the peaches that were left in the can were turned over and were on the floor also.
Wow. But can I take the story a little deeper, if I may? So how high is that shelf that can falls from to such a fierce impact to make a total sealed can pop open for peaches to spill out? We already discussed that the shelf might not be that high. So
this is a pantry that has 4 shelves, so you probably figure each shelf is 3 feet high, or 3 feet for the first
3 feet, 3 feet. So was it on the top shelf?
No, this was on the second shelf, from the bottom up, second shelf.
So maybe only not even 3 feet off the ground?
Yeah, right.
Wow.
3 or 4 feet off the ground.
Who's living in your pantry?
Well, actually, my mother.
Wait.
My mother passed away in 2021, and my mother loved my house here in Houston.
Did she live with you in your house ever?
My parents lived in Mexico City all their life.
Wow.
I grew up here by myself. Like I said, I grew up at this school, and ever since I've lived by myself.
And
I've been married, but I'm not married right now.
How long from the time the peaches fell to the floor was your mother's death? What's the time frame?
Oh, no, my mom died in 2021.
And when did the
3 years ago?
And when did the peaches hit the floor?
This was 2 days ago.
So we're only talking a couple of years.
Yeah, 3 years
since her death.
Yeah.
Near an anniversary?
Well, no, her anniversary that she died was July 25th. But every once in a while, I get little things that happen. The day she died in Mexico City. That night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I want to say that it was her. She came in, someone or somehow, I had this mirror hanging in my bathroom. That wasn't just hanging on a nail. It was glued to the wall, with those sticky back-ons.
Mm-hmm.
And it had been up there for like 20 years.
Wow.
Well, the night that she died, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to this crash. I woke up. I was here in my house in Houston the morning that she died in Mexico. I was planning on, traveling down there the following day, not expecting her to die that night. But I woke up to this big crash. I turned on the light. I thought someone had broken in, through a window or something. And I looked over to the bathroom floor and saw all the pieces of the mirror all over the floor. As if someone just ripped that mirror off the wall and slammed it down on the floor and broke it into 1,000 pieces.
Wow.
When that happened, I just said, Mom, couldn't you have found some other way to say goodbye?
A lot of times people just give you a little whisper or maybe a puff of
why'd you have to come and make this big mess that I got to clean up now, and I got to go buy a new mirror. Come on.
And hang it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I believe in and have I witnessed? Yes, I have.
So, significance of the peaches to Mom. What are the significance of the peaches to Mom? Or is there any? I thought maybe she made a really good peach pie or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I did buy those because she at one time made some kind of dessert with them because she used to come visit me.
Yeah.
And when she used to come visit me, she'd come and stay for, a couple of weeks. And she always loves to cook, And she always loved the house, here in Houston. And she always used to say that it was her house,
So if it sounds like you recognize that this is your mother's presence. Is it because you feel it's your mother's presence, or perhaps she's being symbolic in the force that she had in your life? Right? She gave birth to you. She gave you a life that I have to say that you've probably lived 5 lifetimes in comparison to most people. Correct? So you emanate this energy that your mother has given you. You live it, you wear it, you breathe it, you pass it out into the world. And your mother is now doing that in her death.
Yes.
In these very strong, forceful, symbolic energy acts. I think it's very profound that this is happening to you, and you're right away recognizing that's Mom.
Well, the reason I recognized her doing it is because she always liked to play like tricks, We were always playing tricks on each other,
Well, I can only imagine the tricks you played on your mother.
Yeah. And so, all her life, when she used to come to the house, she always used to say, this is my house, right? I said, yes, Mom, this is your house. And she always said, I'm going to come live here one day. Yes, Mom, you can come live anytime you want. And she said, and even after I'm dead, I'm still going to be here. I was like, yes, Mom, you can come and stay as long as you want.
So is she buried back in Mexico City?
Excuse me?
Is she buried back in Mexico City? That's where she's her final resting place?
Yes.
So, wow. So do you find that you're not only a motivation to the living, but perhaps you're a motivation to the dead as well?
I don't know that the dead need any motivation. I think they're doing other things much better and greater than what we're doing here.
Wow, that's quite a profound statement. And how would you define that?
Well, I mean, I say that, we're, at least in life here, we're here to progress. We're here to move forward. We're not here to stand still. We're not here to go backwards. You can't make the clock go backwards.
No, we can't, even though we try.
Right. You can't make your body go backwards either. You can only move forward. And moving forward to me is in a positive direction. Okay. If we talk about energy, all energy has a positive and negative.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, a battery has a positive and negative, and that battery emanates energy.
Every cell in your body
exactly
is composed of a positive and a negative neutron.
Exactly.
So and negative doesn't mean bad. Although a lot of people like to label, negative bad, positive good. No, that's not what it's about. This is just about energy being positive and negative. And so everything that exists has a positive and a negative. Energy moves forward. Energy is positive. So everything that we do is about moving forward. And it's about, progressing, making progress. And the minute that you stop making progress is the minute that you start dying or that you actually die. I always tell people the minute you stop learning is the moment you die. Otherwise, you learn something new up until your last breath. So, that's my personal view on it is, we're always moving forward. So what happens to when you leave your body? You're still moving forward. You're still progressing. You're still moving into something, what I believe is bigger and better.
Wow. I don't know. There are times here you have brought me to tears, literally, because what you're saying has so much resignation. Now, I mean, very much to myself and hopefully to the listeners here that are hearing the things that you're speaking to, because, we all are death curious. We all do or don't believe in ghosts or the afterlife, or where we're going to go in our next life, what we're going to achieve or accomplish. But in these moments, you have found a way to really try to put all of that into a perspective for people to truly ponder upon. I mean, I know I'm going to ponder on it for a while.
Oh, the day my mother died, like I said, she died during a night, and then she came to visit me. And then, I went on to Mexico to, be with the family and stuff, and everybody's like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, why? And they're like, you don't look sad. Because I'm not. But hey, as a mom, my brothers, I have two brothers, like, but it was a mom that died, and everybody's like, well, why don't you look sad? And I said, because I'm not sad. I know that my mother's now gone on to bigger and better things, I kind of like I forgot what countries, and even they used to here in Louisiana celebrate, when someone would die, March.
Yeah, they have the jazz funerals. It's a very upbeat.
Upbeat, and let's celebrate,
And the same with in the Latin American cultures and especially Mexico, you guys have the Day of the Dead.
Yeah,
then you're celebrating the ancestors that have passed before you. And it's a big celebration because you believe the spirit's coming home, to brace the family again with their presence, even in a spiritual form.
Yeah, well, I'm happy for those that pass on because I'm like, hey, yeah, hang on, I'm coming,
Save a place for me, right?
We're going to meet up again one day, okay?
Don't get too far ahead.
don't get too far ahead of me.
Yeah, exactly. So where do you or can you pinpoint in your time of your life where you have been able to become so, I want to say, intertwined or in touch with this concept of life and death and the energies that are existent in our life and continue on in our death? Was this something that you feel that because you were born with the perception of others that you were destined to die, that this came about? Or is it just because of your differences that others have looked upon you, that you are so different than everybody else? You have found a way to have the ability to seek and think at a higher level.
I don't think that I have an answer to that question because, I haven't really stopped to analyze, at what point or what made me think this way or anything like that. Why do I think that way? Because I just do,
So there was no profound moment in life that you
I don't recall any
recall.
moment in my life. I've studied a lot of things about life, energy, religion, different beliefs. When I was in college, I hung around with a lot of different groups of different religions and different beliefs.
Which do you find is important to open your mind and expand your mind to understanding different religions and different beliefs?
Like I said in the beginning, you got to feed your mind.
Exactly.
And if you don't feed your mind, then you're ignorant. So, where do you want to be? Do you want to be on the ignorant side or do you want to be on the, knowledgeable side of things? Do you want to have knowledge about what's going on and what people, think and how to deal with people? Or do you want to stay ignorant and just, bury yourself in your little cubby hole and hope that nothing ever happens? That's a decision we all have to make. And I've never been one to just sit still. I've always been one that, hey, let's see how this, let me see how this work, As a little kid, I remember grabbing my dad's stereo, and one day when he went off to work, I took a screwdriver and took all the screws out of it because I want to find out where that voice is coming from,
An inquiring mind.
Yeah, and he came. When my dad came back home, he's like, "What happened to my radio?" And I was like, "Well, I was looking for the man inside, but I couldn't find him." So that's just the way my mind is. And also, as a kid, I have an older brother. He's a year older than me, and I have a younger brother. I'm 4 years older than him. And as a kid, I remember. At Christmas time, my older brother, first 4 years, there was just me and him. He used to get all the toys. And I used to get books. Because people didn't think that I was able to play with toys. Because I didn't have no hands. So how was I going to play with toys? So I would always have to go and ask my brother, hey, can I borrow your cars or your trains or whatever, or can we play together, And I always wanted to play with the toys, but I had to show people that I could play with the toys. You know, it wasn't like they would just hand them to me. It was like, well, you think you could play it? Yeah, of course I can play it. Just give it to me, you know. So my mind has always been on the side of let's solve things.
Yeah.
Let's look for a solution.
So I think that your brain has always operated on a higher frequency than others, perhaps.
Right. It's always been on the frequency of let's learn.
Yes.
Let's figure it out.
Because everything in your life has required you to figure out, where most people, we don't have to figure it out because it's already an expectation or it's already a given, because we don't have to figure things out, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
You know, they hand us a knife, a fork, and a spoon and say, these are your eating utensils. They teach us when we're children how to utilize them because they're made for our hands. Whereas
Correct.
you can't have a fork, a knife, and a spoon, but yet you can because you had figured it out.
That's another thing that I do is I use what I call the power of visualization. I have to visualize in my mind first how I'm going to do things. And once I can visualize it, then I do it. And if I can't see myself doing it in my mind, or if my mind's saying, okay, the probabilities are not good that it's going to work out, then I don't do it because my mind's already worked it out, so I don't have to go and make the mistake.
Could you imagine what our world would look like if more people thought like you?
Well, no. I think we'd be in trouble.
But I mean, you're trying to figure out if what you're going to do is going to actually accomplish the mission and do so in a positive way, right? Have a positive outcome. When a lot of times people don't even use their brain to think, and before you know it, they've already created this action that has an ill response at the end.
Well, we're getting into another deep subject, and that is, you know, how we're moving more and more forward into a stage of ignorance, where it's better to keep people ignorant so they can be more easily dominated.
I truly agree with that.
But that's another topic.
Yes, I truly agree with that. But one thing you don't ever have to be ignorant about, and that's death, right? Because no matter how smart you are, how ignorant you are, no matter whether you're born with all your limbs and they function or not, we will all have death, right?
Yeah, I always grew up as a teacher. Ever since I can remember, one of my teachers used to always say, you know, two things in life you can't get away from, and that's, you know, paying taxes and death.
Oh, but you can cheat on your taxes.
Oh, you
just can't cheat death.
You can't cheat death.
Although many people try.
Some people say that they cheated death because they went, they died, and came back.
That is true. There are some of those that have, yes.
So I don't know if that's cheating death or not, but
I think that's escaping it. Well, Gabriel, it has been fascinating talking with you. I could literally talk to you for hours. There's so many words that you have spoken that I needed to hear, and I hope others did too. You've given tons of food for thought. You definitely are waking up my mind. That's for sure.
Well, I'm glad that I've been able to accomplish something here, because like I said, as long as we're moving forward, then we have a life worth living.
That I couldn't say it any better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and hope everyone has a blessed day.
Thank you for joining me today on this podcast, and I hope that you will share this episode and our future episodes with family and friends. We look forward to any feedback you have to offer by giving us a review on Apple or Spotify. And we hope that you will join us for a virtual tour at www.nmfh.org. And always remember, any day above ground is a good one.